Star in Focus podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Oakes, and today we have with us the wonderful Lynzie Zempel. Hi, Elle. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm so good. Thank you very much for being here. It's awesome that I get to interview you. Our viewers may not know, but Elle is one of my dearest friends, and I've been trying to get her on the show, so I feel like it's a win. Our schedules aligned. So, Elle, what do you know about Star and the Star podcast, if anything at all?
I don't know very much. I know that you have been a part of it, and I've also talked to Andrea before in the past. But I'm very involved with our state association, so that's kind of been my focus for the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. You were just the president. You are the immediate past president of the
I
state
am.
association. Yeah, which is awesome. That's actually how we met, was
Yes.
being on the board, and I encourage everybody to get involved. It was a really great experience for us to get to know people and all of that jazz. Why don't you tell the viewers how you got into the industry?
So I have an English degree, and after I was done with school, I was working at various art galleries in Minneapolis and Duluth, that's where I'm from. So one of my closest friends had jury duty in Duluth, and she had told me that they went into a room and were able to talk to the judge and the court reporter, and they had lots of questions for the court reporter. And she told me that it sounded like a really great job, something that I would really enjoy with my background. And so the next day I looked into it and found a school in Anoka and signed up and moved to Minneapolis. So it's kind of it was something that I had been wanting to do for a while, go back to school, and also something in kind of the legal profession.
Yeah, definitely, which I think is a very noble profession. It's nice to kind of have sort of, I don't know that we're really engrossed in it like, maybe attorneys, but I do feel like we've got like our foot in the door kind of thing, which is fascinating.
Yes.
There's just so much interesting stuff that happens in law. And how are you feeling now? Are you feeling like you want to, maybe you have your own firm, so that was something that you did. And what made you get your own firm? Where did you start building that for?
Sure. So when I first was done with school, I started as a official court reporter in Duluth, Minnesota. And I worked in St. Louis County, and I worked for a wonderful, wonderful judge, and he retired. So I moved back to Minneapolis, and I worked for another great judge in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I had always in the back of my mind wanted to do freelance. It just always seemed really interesting to me. I loved sort of the aspect of being a business owner and having kind of that freedom. And so that is why I just decided to do that. And that was about five years ago.
That's awesome. And so I also freelance, but what would you describe for our viewers the differences that you found in official arena versus freelance?
So official, the great things about it is that you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I loved that. Health insurance, sort of a forced retirement that you were investing in, things like that. And you had a schedule, you had to be there every day. You knew a little bit about what you were going to be doing. And I was on the felony rotation for a few years, so it was a lot of trials, which I loved. That was great experience. And sort of the downsides is that you have to be in the same place Monday through Friday, whereas a freelance, you're just all over the place. I mean, I was in Ely last week. Today I did some Zoom depos from home. So you are all over the state and the country if you want to be. So I love that about it.
Yeah, that's definitely what I like about it, is that sort of flexibility and the variety, right? It just always feels like something new, and that's kind of a fun part of the profession. And so, as I was saying before, I feel like you've done so much for our profession. You've been in two different kinds of arenas as far as reporting, and you've been the president of our association in the state. Are you thinking about maybe doing more traveling? You said you went to Eli. You think about doing anything internationally, or how do you feel about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I personally love to travel. It's my favorite thing to do. And so if I can make my career so that I can travel as well, that is my goal. And the only thing holding me back at this time is that I don't have my RPR, so it's hard to work in other states. So now that I'm not so involved with the state association, I'm the immediate past president, but it's different than being the president. So this year, 2024 is the year I'm going to get my RPR, and the reward of that for me is being able to travel and different cases, meet different people.
Yeah, definitely. And so the viewers may not know, but different states have, just like everything else, right? Different states have different regulations, and some states have their own board, and then some states don't. So, you may be able, like here in Minnesota, you don't have any requirements. There's no board governing us, but in other states that would be preventative. Like in California, they have really strict really hard tests to pass and strict board regulations. So there's definitely a piece of that, yeah, I could see you're maybe not getting as much as you want out of it, but the opportunity is there, which is really great. Are you taking classes? Are you putting yourself on like a schedule? What's your plan of action there?
So I have taken a real-time class. I think it was the beginning of this year. We were in that class together, and that was really helpful to have a regimented schedule. But I did find it challenging because it was in the evening, and that is not when I do my best learning.
Sure.
So starting in 2024, I bought the book that you suggested.
Oh, the Ed Varela book?
Yes.
Nice.
And that has really been helping. So I'm going to really dig into that. I'm going to sign up for Real-Time Coach, and I'm going to set 30 minutes an hour every day to just practice. I'm going to sign up for the next test, which I think is in March.
Ooh,
so I'm going to have to be a self-motivator for this.
I mean, that's kind of what our career is, to be fair.
It absolutely is.
I mean, if you don't want to work, you're not working, like it is very, exactly. And I think there are so many things that made it challenging for me to get through school, but the time management and the self-motivation when you're isolated and you go online like I did. So I was always just in my own bedroom at that time. I didn't have a separate office or anything. I think that can be really challenging. And I think that just goes across the board, right? Everybody struggles with kind of finding motivation maybe to get things done when,
Yes. And if I can just mention, so I've started going to the gym, and that has really helped with my sort of mental health and being able to be more prepared when I show up to a job. I just feel a lot better. And the other day I did not want to go, and I was like, it's not my motivation that's bringing me here. It's just my habit. It's my routine.
Yeah.
It's just my dedication to wanting to feel better. And so I'm like, I need to transfer that into practicing for my RPR and getting that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's, like you said, it's about feeling good, because that's what makes you feel good, right? When you feel like you have conquered it and you are in control, and, all of those things really make a difference. If I feel like everybody's talking at once and I have no control over the situation, I'm just like, I want to go home. I'm so overwhelmed. It's just really challenging for me personally.
Right. It's so easy to feel that way, especially with, we have just the constant deadlines, and that's something that I had deadlines in court, but not with the 10 business day turnaround.
Yeah. So
that is challenging, but I feel like I've worked on that and done some soul searching about procrastinating. So I think I'm in a good place. So that's kind of why I'm ready to take the next step.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I wish I could get paid for the procrastination that I don't know. I feel like, do I work better under pressure, or I don't know. I'm not sure what that is, but
yeah, I don't know what it is either, but yeah, it's like when you're in high school and you have a paper due and you've waited to the last minute, you're going to get it done, but I'm like, I would prefer to get it done when I'm feeling my best. I've had the sleep, I've had the food that I like to eat, instead of waiting until the last minute, which I've been known to do.
Yes, definitely. I think there might be a bit of that in a lot of us, for sure.
Yes.
Growing up, my father would always say, you could die tomorrow. And that was kind of like, so unfortunately, I kind of have this mentality that we'll see what happens, and then when it really comes down to it, I'm like, okay. But luckily, I go by deadlines of my proofer. I go by you know what I mean? So I do live by those deadlines, but I do push it. And luckily I have other things to help me, hold me accountable, because.
Yes, it is. That's a really good point. How that you have a team, even though you're freelancing, you need a team. I mean, you need a proofer, you need a scopist, And so just before I jumped on here, I emailed my proofer and I was like, I'll have it to you in the morning. So that means I have to have it to her in the morning.
Right.
So it's these little deadlines that kind of keep you on track.
Yes, definitely. That force us to be held accountable for sure. So I always ask our guests a little bit about what they would tell like the next generation, the students that are graduating high school, or and really anybody, because you can join this career at any stage of your life. But just for people, the younger people that are maybe, you know, seeing the way the world is changing and looking for something. I always joke, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but you know, these kids that, you know, are maybe interested, what would you share with them about your experience?
You know, I have a lot of younger people in my life and I try to give them advice when they ask for it. But I think for court reporting, it's such a great career because you can do so many different things with it. I mean, you can live anywhere. I could, if I wanted to move, I could just open up the internet and choose a place to live and I could get a job. Not many professions have that. So I think that is a really great feeling. You can make a lot of money. And I also think if you're a person that likes reading and eavesdropping and a little bit of drama, it's a really fun career. I mean, are there boring depositions? Absolutely. But you do get the ones that are so interesting.
Yes.
And that's kind of the magic of our career, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess I would just tell young people, I know that there's a lot of kind of fear around AI and things like that. And I just think that there is always the AI is not where it needs to be. There is always a need for a court reporter, whether it be in, you know, the higher level courts, freelancing, asbestos jobs, things like that. There needs to be a court reporter there.
Right. Somebody that's not associated with either party, right? Like there needs to be an independent person there that can certify that these transcripts are, you know, accurate reflection of what happened and all of that. Yeah, definitely. I agree. I don't think anybody would disagree with you on that for sure. And we've seen it come so far, you know, I mean, we've toured, you know, stenograph and seen the original, you know, from chisel and you know, stone all the way to now where things are digital and there's just so much help in, I don't know if help is the right word that I'm looking for, but there's just so much technology really that is there to assist us. Maybe help is the right word. We actually at STAR in San Diego in 2024, we are having somebody come speak with us about AI because we're not really content generators, right? Like we're just capturing the content and then putting it, you know, into a transcript. But so my experience is really limited with AI. I mean, I know like the sky is the limit and, you know, you can do so many things with it, but I think it's really important to kind of understand that it's not one industry, right? It's all throughout the entire world as we know it. I mean, what is your experience with AI, or do you have any?
My husband, Jason, he works in the technology sphere, and so he has experience with AI, and he's constantly learning more. And so I just asked him actually just a couple days ago, and I was like, well, what do you think? What's your prognosis? What do you think? And he was like, court reporters are safe because the hardest thing to capture is human beings and their voice and their accents and all of the different things that as court reporters we know about.
Right.
So, and I use Eclipse and forgive me, I don't know the name of what it is, but it's sort of like an AI generated and it helps you. I just took a medical doctor deposition and it really, really helps because I don't have all of the sort of medical jargon in my dictionary and it popped up and it was just so encouraging because I was like, I've got this. It's going to be easier to scope.
Yeah.
And when you see it come up on your screen, it's just such a boost for your energy. So I'm like, if it's helping everybody, you know, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, medical and legal, to be honest, is the hardest because it's all in Latin. It's the worst. It's just so many PSs and oh my goodness. Yeah, it's definitely challenging when it comes to and medicines. And especially the hardest part for me is that people oftentimes pronounce them completely
Yes.
incorrectly. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not a word. I cannot find this anywhere in the dictionary.
Right. And to see it on the screen already there, and sometimes it's not maybe spelt correctly how the AI has had it, but it's still very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So, I can't even think of what it's called for Case Catalyst, but I know what you're talking about. It's like live scoping essentially. Like as we're writing and
Yes.
it's collecting the data, it's putting the two together and then providing suggestions. So like we were just saying, if somebody, gabapentin or something, if somebody says it wrong, it'll say here, this is what I think it should be, kind of
Right.
situation. And so, do you use that all the time? Is it just like the best thing?
Yeah, I definitely use it for any sort of doctor deposition. That's where it really, really shines for, the universities they attended and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
It's great for that. It's not great for little words. So if I'm doing like a personal injury or something, I usually don't use it. I find that it will actually put things that are completely wrong in there and it just takes me longer. So I'm now kind of picking and choosing when to use it,
That makes
when it's most beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing that's not just standard in my dictionary are all of the universities and, all of those kinds of things that I always have to end up adding to my dictionary. I'm actually we had Anissa Nierenberger on recently, and she has like a dictionary jumpstart thing or whatever. So I'm gonna do that, which I'm very excited about because it's always like we talked. It's so nice to feel good about your work, and so
Yes.
it's really nice to the new year. We're gonna, start
Yeah.
fresh. I can't believe it's already gonna be 2024.
I know. I know. And I think back to your original question about what I would tell, someone younger than me or in high school, I think it's a 2-year program. So that I think really fits in with a lot of people's desires of not having tremendous student loan, and you can get a job immediately. So I think that's really important to highlight as well.
That is really important. And, I learned recently that, back in, I guess, maybe the 80s and 90s, that reporters were graduating and not able to find work. And I had
Yes.
no idea that that was even a thing because now people are just desperate. It's like they're
Yeah.
just foaming at the mouth. We need a reporter so badly.
Yes.
There's just a ton of.
So I feel like we're in such a great position. I mean, it is hard when there is a shortage, but I try to remain positive about it and just think the world is my oyster. I can be as prepared. I mean, just the other day someone called and was like, "Can you do real time?" And it would have been a really great job, but I'm like, I don't have my RPR. And so I'm just having kind of the universe tell me in ways that you need to do it. So when the opportunities are there, you just need to be ready.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah, because the sky's the limit. There's no end to the amount of money. And, even as firm owners, there's so much room for growth there. And I feel like we're in a
yes.
good time too because I think society is kind of, or the culture maybe, is kind of um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like holding up or appreciating smaller firms more than the really
Yes.
big of any industry, not just ours. But I think that that really bodes well for people that are trying to do a startup, trying to get their feet on the ground and just jump into the career. So the opportunity is definitely out there for you to be successful, which is really great. I mean, that's what people want is to be successful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Do you have any like absolutely hilarious things that you experienced in a deposition that you're allowed to tell us?
Oh, for some reason I mean, you're a freelance court reporter, so there's just so many things it's hard to pick, but I really just think about all the people that I have met along the way. And, there's a lot of really sad things that you
Yeah.
hear, a lot of deaths and just pain. You see these people, and sometimes it's the first time they've ever really talked about the death of this loved one or about some violence that they've had against them. And so that I think is rewarding in and of itself to be able to sort of document these people's stories and to be the one in the room that they'll look at you and you just have to stay strong and not cry. And then there's also moments that are hilarious too,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
And it's great. It's a great job. You meet all sorts of people and you learn about all sorts of different jobs and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And more often than not, the deponent wants to know, like, what's happening under there, because
Hmm.
the laptop's on the table, but my hands are not, and so it's very much
Yes.
like, what is going on? And I think that that's kind of fun too, a little mini, class on what stenography is. Although it doesn't prevent the crosstalk, unfortunately.
Yes, it doesn't.
I want to have like a taboo buzzer. I swear. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I have been on this case that is just like crosstalk mania. And I am just like I'm at my wit's end and I literally just want to like I'm not capturing anything anymore until you guys stop it.
Yeah.
But
It's really hard. I think just putting your hands up so there's a visual of that helps them connect because they're in the heat of the moment and I'm sure they want to get what they need to say out and
yes.
so I try to be understanding, but it is annoying for us for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely do. You have to have compassion because this is a very, by the time we're in the room, it's a very contentious situation, right? Like it's more,
Oh,
very
absolutely.
rarely would it be a situation where it's, feelings are not high. But I think it's taught me a lot about, the way that I speak and the way that, I allow other people to speak. And so there are things that I learned from this career that I never, that are completely unrelated, that are just, I almost feel like I've learned a lot from the attorneys as well, the way that they ask for clarification on things. So in my personal life, I definitely approach things that I don't understand or that I want to know more about in the same fashion. So I feel like I have learned a ton of stuff that I never would have thought I would be, exposed to. But yeah, there's just everything from, like you said, medical to, construction and everything in between. And so it's almost like
Yeah.
being,
And family law, that's sort of my favorite. I love family law and divorces. That's kind of that I love those
because
depositions.
you're a
Those
real
are usually
housewife kind of.
yes. I'm like, what's going on? How much
Right?
money?
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. I don't do a lot of family law, but I feel like that's because I just am too sensitive, I think, and so I get a little bit too emotional with that. And I don't know if I've shared on this platform, but that when I worked for Judge Smith, I was literally like, I'm gonna take all these kids home, all these
Yeah.
poor kids. Like I'm gonna adopt everybody. It's gonna be fine, and it's just hard to
Yes.
separate yourself sometimes from.
It really is, especially when children are involved and you see how much their parents are going through, and those are really hard ones. Like the parental terminations are tough.
Yeah, definitely. And those are not, civil litigation. That's not really stuff that we normally see in,
No,
in
no.
our world now. But in the courthouse, if you're working in family, that's where
Yes.
you would run into those kinds of things. But yeah, there's just such a wide range of things that we get exposed to. And sometimes the people are super cool. I'm like, I kind of want to hang out with you after this. Is that allowed?
Yes.
Give me
Yes.
friends. So do you have any horror stories? Anything that was wild that happened?
I think the kind of the scariest things, not scary, but for me that leave like the biggest mark is for on like first degree murder trials when you're waiting for the verdict.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is a feeling that I cannot describe. It is you get so invested. At least I do because in the courthouse I worked at, you were oftentimes with them with the defendant when they were first brought in from prison, and so you see them right away, and then you kind of see them at the end of this part of their life, and it's just really emotional.
Yeah, I bet. I never, I mean, I did actually do, when I was interning still, I did do a murder trial, but it was really boring. And I thought it
Yeah, I
was
mean, and there's a lot of really boring stuff because they have the people from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and they are always really boring. And, sometimes the pathologist, and you're just like, people don't realize how much kind of boring stuff there is in cases.
yes, yes.
And I feel like really honored because not many people, unless you're a judge or an attorney, even if you're an attorney, sometimes you don't get to see that criminal justice process from when they first get booked until they're sentenced. And it's absolutely heartbreaking at times, and it's fascinating, and you see a lot of things that are really great about the system and a lot of things that are really could use a spruce up.
Yes, definitely. Well, and the fact that too, the law is up to interpretation, I think. And there's so many things, right, that are up to interpretation that really create some of this, the issues at hand, I guess. And so that is interesting when maybe you interpret things or, I interpret things differently, and then seeing how that can play out. I mean, there's just a lot of nuance involved in there yeah, but that's my absolute least favorite part, is that I don't get to see how these cases end.
Yes.
I want to know, I need to know who.
I agree. That is the worst part of I think the transcript, the major deadlines all the time, that's the worst part. The second worst part is I'm like, well, can you follow up with me? Or,
Yes, it's very important that I know,
Yeah.
And it's, oftentimes too, I'll hear one side and I will absolutely be convinced. And like, this is, slam dunk. And then they blew me away. I had no idea this was going to happen. And yeah, it's crazy. I could not be an attorney. I feel it would just be, Also because I don't want people yelling at me. I don't want any of that stuff happening, but oh my gosh, just I would be erroneous every time. I could not hold my tongue. I would be the one cross-talking constantly. I guarantee you that. They would definitely not like that. So where do you see yourself with your career in the next 10 years? Do you have any sort of aspirations? And I ask you this not because I expect any sort of, profound answer. I'm not that kind of person where I'm like, I envision myself. But if you do have any sort of aspirations, what are they?
So in 10 years, I'll be 50. So I really hope to just continue to grow my business and have more and more clients. I also really love mentoring students. And so part of me would really like to maybe teach a class or something like that, be more involved in sort of the academic side. Because I just remember being a student, and it was so profound when a court reporter would come in and talk about their experience. It's kind of what kept me going in those darker days of being a student. And I know all programs are hard, but there is something about being a court reporter that's really frustrating when you keep failing your tests, and you need somebody in your life who's conquered it to be like, I've been there, you can do it.
Yeah.
Come to a deposition with me and see what it's like. So I really have a passion for doing something like that.
That's amazing. I think that would be wonderful if you did. You'd be a great teacher.
Yeah, thank you.
And it fills your cup too. You're giving back.
Yes.
You're always involved in, the association and stuff like that. So once that kind of expires or whatever, then you can try some teaching. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and I had such great teachers at Anoka Tech. Jennifer Sadie was my teacher, and Jane, and they were just really excellent. And you just knew that it was a passion for them.
Yeah.
So they are, and I see them a lot, at conferences and different things that we have at the school for our mentoring programs, and they're fighting the good fight. So I think what they're doing is really outstanding. So they're always inspiring to me.
They really are inspiring. They are just, solid representation of what can, happen if you stick to it and you really just dive into the profession and engross yourself in all of the things steno and just, I think they're amazing. And it really makes a difference when you have teachers that care, and the fact that you actually went to school, because that's not as common anymore, especially after COVID.
No, it's not.
I mean, do you think that made a difference for you? Would you have rather stayed and done it virtually?
I had some really close friends that I really don't think that I would have gotten through the program if it weren't for them. I remember there was a time when I was like, I'm done. I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. I'm so frustrated. And I'm sure you can relate to that feeling when you're like, why am I doing this? And I was taking my dog for a walk, and my friend Chambry called me, who was in the program, and she's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm walking my dog. I'm done." And she's like, "Absolutely not. You cannot base this major decision on just because you're frustrated right now. You know, you're going to be frustrated, and then you're going to be excited because you pass a test. So you almost have to like ignore those two feelings of that high of passing a test and those like low lows. You have to kind of find the middle ground." So, and I was like, okay. So I ran back to the house, dropped my dog off, and got into the car, and I was like 15 minutes late. But she made such an impact. So I think the friendships and the relationships that I've made along the way are really what have kind of kept me going during school.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great experience. And I know you guys are
Yeah.
still friends, which is really
Yeah, we're still friends. And my friend Leah, she was great too. And we're still friends. She works in Mankato. And, you know, as newer court reporters too, we were all sort of thrown in to the professional world at the same time. And it was really great to have them and be like, I feel so confused, so lost, so nervous to do this. And they're like, you got to do it, keep doing it. So,
right. And that's why they say, experience is so valuable because you go to school, you ace our tests. I mean, we had to get either a 95 or a 96. I think it might have been a 95, but I spoke to somebody recently who had to get a 99. And so by the time, yeah, 99%. So by the time, you've graduated, you've accomplished all this, then you get in the real world and it's like, oh, I actually don't, I don't feel prepared even though you should.
right, right. But I think going to school, I mean, I think just that feeling of like, okay, I hate to use the word fail because you're not failing, but you don't pass a test. And that is a foreign feeling for me. I always did well in school, but it's different than a traditional English degree or what have you. It's different.
Right.
But I have accomplished so much in my life just because I'm like, I went to court reporting school and I finished it. And it took me a very long time. It took me like 4 years or something, but I did it. You know, I showed up and I watched all these people come and finish before me and I still showed up. So I'm like, I ran a marathon. I started a business. I've done all these things. And that is always what I say in the back of my mind. You can do this because you finished court reporting school. So
I love that one.
if any students are listening, keep going and reach out to a friend, reach out to a mentor because court reporters want to help other court reporters, especially I think people of our generation who have been in the work field for, 8 years or however long. We have a little bit of wisdom to share, but we have not forgotten the pain of school.
Right. It's so graduating that was so close to where we are now that we still have that sort of empathy. No, absolutely. I could not agree more. And I think that's really great advice. We are, here at STAR trying to reach people that don't know about our profession and educate them. And we're also trying to, educate and encompass people that are in the profession and looking for whatever it might be. And that's great advice to really just reach out because I can't imagine anybody would not want to be of assistance. And I know, and maybe that's not a fair statement. I mean, I'm sure there's terrible people, but we absolutely, the people that we know, the people that are in the state association that we work with, I mean, people are always talking about being mentors and helping each other out because it's a really isolating field. I mean, there's not a lot of, my proofer lives on the East Coast and you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So it's not like there's a ton of people in our office or whatever.
Right. And we have sort of like a global office because, you and I went to Washington, D.C. for the NCRA boot camp and we met so many wonderful people. And I think when people show up to these events, your local association, your national, those are the people that I think have a lot to offer and they have a lot to give and they want to help people. So I think that if you're in a position where you're feeling really discouraged and you don't really know what to do and you need some advice, I mean, really reach out to your national association because they want to help you.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, that is what STAR is all about, is just being all encompassing, right? Like everybody is welcome. There's no discrimination against any kind of method or any kind of whatever it may be, right? Like we are stronger together. And I think that that's something that we really just want to make sure that all of the students and people who don't know feel safe and feel confident, because you do need help. You can't do it alone. It's really challenging. And it's a skill set. You know, you were saying earlier that it's not like any other degree, because when you go to school for things, it's knowledge based. And so you're just, you're learning that kind of thing. But this is a skill. And so you really have to master not only a different language, but that skill of being able to translate it and put it out very quickly. And that's hard to do.
Yeah. And I also think it's and I don't think I realized this until sort of I graduated the program and I had been working in the field, and it is a mental struggle as well. Like, you have to take care of yourself physically, mentally. You have to do that, because I think at least when I was a student and I was taking a test, you could get thrown off. I could get thrown off so easily. But on the days where especially now as a working reporter, when I take care of my body and my mind, I do better. I feel better. It's easier to produce. And I feel like we need to tell students that, to take care of your mental health.
Definitely. And along with all of the other things that they have to do self-wise, it's like, don't let that slip by the wayside, because you're responsible.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people that are independent and maybe introverts that don't, like a lot of engagement. And so they maybe would thrive in this type of environment, but you still have to take care of your mental health, because you don't want to use the word failure, but you're definitely stumbling and you're not passing tests, and you're not passing 90+% of the tests that you're taking.
Yes.
And that's really discouraging, no matter what it is that you're doing. So it is definitely a profession of steadfastness, Yes. It's hard for me to say.
I always wish that I had a stack of all the tests that I didn't pass, versus, you don't need that to pass that many tests when you think about it.
Right.
And I just think once you get past it just helps, because when you get into your career, there's things where you're like, I don't know what that means. I don't know. I just set up all my stuff. You're telling me I have to move to another courthouse and interrupt a trial. I feel uncomfortable doing that. And it's like, hey, you've messed up before. Get back on, keep doing it. And so it's just such a life skill, finishing school. And I think that's great. I think if you're feeling frustrated, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Right.
You'll conquer it.
Yes, you absolutely can conquer it, for sure. And that's, people ask me all the time, because as you know, it took me eons to graduate for a myriad of reasons. But that was all that I did, was just, I didn't give up. That was it. I cried, all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
and at the end of the day, it was just like, and then, so when I passed my test, my teacher actually called and was like, you passed your test, you're graduated. And I was like, oh, really? I just was so used to, because how you would take them and then the auto grade might be 94, but then when they graded, it's 96 or whatever. But I had just gotten so many 94s in the last year or whatever it was, and so it was just like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? You almost just, I was completely unprepared. But that mentality of just not giving up is really what kept it going, and that can apply to everything in every industry.
Yeah. Because you go through these challenges, and a lot of people that I went to school with or that I work with now, it's, they've had a parent die or somebody being sick, and it's like, you have to rise to the occasion. And I think going through these little mini challenges of being in school and being in your 120s and being like, oh, I just didn't pass 4 tests in a row. It's like, you think that's bad? It's going to get worse. Buckle up.
Exactly. And use by buckling up, it's essentially, we're saying, use the resources out there. We're here for you.
Yes.
We're here as a community to help everybody be stronger. That's what we want. We don't need any more negativity. We're tapped out on negativity.
No, I think just keep it positive and find your group, find a friend. I mean, we've become such good friends, and we've really helped each other through a lot of different things, professionally and personally. And that relationship is so valuable and such a thing that you just need to invest in to help you with your career and your personal life, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a nutshell, what we're saying is core reporting is the answer to all of my problems. It will teach you the skills you need to master just about any situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can get done in as little as 2 years. You have, compared to a 4-year school, fairly low overhead, fairly low student loans. I just think it's a great career.
Yes, I could not agree more. Absolutely. And I hope everybody that's listening is feeling empowered and capable and excited about taking whatever the next step might be.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think it's a good time for us to wrap up. I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat and inspire our viewers and get people, excited and invigorated, because that's what we want. So thank you so much. Is there anything else, any last words of wisdom you have?
No, just find a friend in the court reporting field. If you're interested in the career, I think reach out to either one of us.
Yeah.
And I think don't be limited by where you live, because with Zoom and the internet, it's a global office.
Yes.
So reach out.
Yeah,
I just invented it.
Well, thank you so much, Lynzie. It has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Lynzie Zempel at Zempel Reporting. Feel free to reach out. We will put your email in the show notes. You're going to get all kinds of mail. Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you guys for joining in. I hope you all have a wonderful day and happy holidays.